Okay, welcome back. So today what we're going to be working towards is a tile map. We're going to be looking at creating an environment that'll make the game seem a bit more visually appealing. We're also going to add a hunger bar. We're also going to hopefully add an inventory bar, or what's more commonly known as like a resource bar. You see that a lot in games that are strategy based. And then hopefully we'll add a few tweaks in, changing some of the speed, testing a little bit, and maybe changing the beach trigger to a more appropriate place, and a few more decorations and stuff like that. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so let's start off with this tile map. Now, I don't really like tile maps all that much. There's some people that really prefer them. I personally don't really like tile maps. I think they're very restrictive. I know that you can use a rule map, which allows you to add animation and a bit more randomization to a lot of the tiles you place down. But I don't really like it. I think it's really restrictive. I prefer using something called sprite shape. I think it makes a much more natural looking environment. However, for now I'm using tile maps. So as you can see, I've brought into my palette a sprite sheet for an island that I've created. We're just going to skip ahead a little bit. I've made some very basic squared islands. I'm moving the beach out of the way. It's very straightforward. Tile mapping is very, very quick. That's the advantage of them. I just don't like them because they don't look natural. A lot of the games I've played that have tile maps, you'll need an incredible amount of sprite sheets or sprites to create in order to get a more natural looking environment using tile maps. If you don't have the time, then tile maps still is a quick way of doing it, which is why I've chose it now. I'm probably going to change it in the future, and I'm going to maybe create my own prefabs of islands so I can add them to so I can add random generation into it. But for now, I'm using this tile map. Now, as you can see, it's all working. I've spent a little bit, I've cut out quite a lot of time, but I spent a lot of time making these islands, adding a bit more environment, a basic border, and as you can see, I'm adding a bit of decoration to the islands. This is some of the sprites that I actually created, and I'm using a different palette specifically for decoration. So as you can see, I'm adding it all in. I'm adding some rocks, some basic objects, again to make it look a little bit more nicer. I've moved some of the spawners over to the left and then sort out the ordering so that you can actually see the food, because right now it's behind it, and you see that the decorations, the rocks and things, that tile map is all in the front. So now I press play to see how it is, and as you can see, it all works. All the sharks are coming from the right still, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to change that. I'm going to change that to make it look a little bit more interesting. Now, of course, I've gone away from the Frogger and decided to go for a more open world experience. This is mainly because the game itself looked a little bit boring, and I wanted the game to be a bit more replayable. Now, I'm doing a bit of tweaking here to the food and such. And I'm now adding the food bar. Now, I was saying, I just didn't like the Frogger approach. It has been quite a few weeks since I've come back to the project, so I've had a bit of thought into it and decided to change it. So here I am adding the UI for the bar. I now need to get obviously the coding in, which is very simple. Again, you're just changing a lot of the code that's already there. Rather than getting things like text, all I'm doing is getting an image instead. It's very, very straightforward. Now, I do start having a few problems because I haven't worked with this for a while, but it's very straightforward. Like I said, once I remember what I'm doing, it gets better. So there you go. There's the full script. I'm only missing one little thing, which is the public, which sometimes I forget. So yeah, I just edit in the fill, adding a bit of colour to it and getting the right size, and I'll test it in a second. Now I do move these icons to the left because I'm still trying to think of how I want this to look. I was thinking maybe having them on the side, like maybe arc, but then it just didn't seem right. Alright, there we go. As you can see, it's working. The hunger is going down. When I do get the grass, it does fill back up. When I get the seagrass, it does fill straight back up. So it's all working. As you can see, the UI at the top left seems fine. Now the next thing I'm going to be working on is the resource bar. So this is where all the every item that you pick up is going to be like shown. I'm still debating whether to do an inventory. I'm pretty sure I'm not too sure if this game really needs it, but we'll explore that probably in the next video. So as you can see, I've got these icons. I'm just sorting them out, putting them in the right places, making sure that I'm organised, and then I start moving all the icons over. And of course, renaming them is really important, so that's what I'm quickly doing. Make sure that they're all named to something I can at least remember. It's going to be straightforward, but these are all the things that the turtle's going to be able to eat in the game. As you can see, I'm just moving everything over. And now, if I just quickly check, I'm just moving over the beach trigger to make sure that it is over a beach. For now, this is where the statue is going to be. That's going to be where I'm going to end the game. So now if I press play, as you can see, I've got my resource bar at the top, I've got hunger. Every time I get a seagrass, it'll fill back up. I'm running around, and then once I get 6 seagrass, 5 or 6, I can't quite remember what I set it to, you will be able to end the game by going to the beach where the statue is. And there we go, won the game. So for the next video, what we're going to be working towards is probably spawn points, filling the map with a lot more variation of rocks and things, and a lot more seagrass and such, just to add a bit of randomization. We're also going to be improving the HUD, the heads-up display, and by adding like things like a bit more decoration and a little bit more visual appeal to maybe the bar and such. We're also possibly going to look at inventory. Right, see you next time.